In the last lesson, we saw how the relevant TIFF images can be base stamped and its redaction applied, then recreated for production. In this lesson, we are going to go ahead and finish the production by exporting out a DAT file of just the relevant documents and the specific fields that we want the opposing side to have. We begin again by bringing up the tag menu and then choosing just the relevant documents. We'll go up to the relevant tag and right-click to select the Create Query from Tag option. This will leave us with just the relevant records that we are interested in, which, as you can see by the Bates begin and Bates end numbers, is the same set of documents that we had produced the TIFF images for. Or, instead of using the tag query feature, since the Bates numbers were applied during the image production process, we can simply sort the database by the Bates begin number. And to really help me keep track of this, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new tag, call it production set 001, and maybe give it a date, such as February 1st, 2008. This will help me if I come back to this same set of documents a month from now, or after I've made numerous relevant productions. It's an easy way for me to keep track of exactly when this production set was made and keep track of whether or not the document set has already been exported from Concordance. So once we have the relevant set of documents, the exporting of the fields is fairly straightforward. We're going to go up to the Documents menu and choose the Export option. And here in the Export menu, we can see several options available. We can export the data as another Concordance database, which means we'll basically get a smaller database with just the records and fields we want. This may be a viable option if the receiving party is your co-counsel or someone who already has Concordance as their main database standard. The second option is the actual one that we want, which generates a simple delimited text file similar to the original DAT file that we built the database with. This is the file type that any receiving party can work with and is generally the accepted production format. The database transcripts option is grayed out. Now, if this was a deposition transcript database instead of a document review database, this would be the option to use to export out those transcripts. And the last option is the ability to export out just the structure of the database. This is handy in that it will provide you with an empty shell of the database. All the fields will be available, but with no data. This would be useful if we were going to create a new database of documents that have the same exact set of fields. This way, we wouldn't have to build the database from scratch and can simply use this shell to import new documents. So let's choose the delimited text format. And just like the importing option, we can go one of two routes. The wizard route, which will walk you through the export process step by step, or via the export dialog box. In this demo, we'll go through the dialog box because, similar to the import function, it's a simple process that will run through much quicker without the wizard. As you can see, the dialog box for export looks similar to the dialog box for import. The only real difference is that there is no status or load boxes. We have the same two boxes listing the available fields for export on the left-hand side and the fields that will be exported on the right-hand side. So, simply double-click on the field that you want to export for the production. For instance, in this demo, we don't want to give the opposing side too much information, so we'll just stick with just the beginning number, the ending Bates number, the author, recipient, CC, and the title field, and we'll leave it at that. We then have the option to pick the range of documents. And since we want to produce all these relevant documents, I'll simply leave it as it is. Then, just like the import process, we need to choose the delimiters. And while it's a good idea to do the exporting with default delimiters, this may change depending on the party receiving this production. They may have other delimiter preferences, which you can change by using these drop-down arrows here. And finally, these two last boxes in the dialog box first decides whether or not the field name should be exported in the first row, which is always a good idea, and whether or not the text information should be exported as rich text, which really is just an aesthetics preference. Rich text would allow any text bolding, italics, font size, and color to carry through to the export. I find it generally useful to leave it unchecked, as not all database software can receive rich text format, and it does not add any real value to the DAT file. Once we've chosen all the fields we want and the preferred settings and delimiters, we just click on this OK button, and we will be prompted for a location to put the new production DAT file. I'll go ahead and put it into the same C production folder that we've been using, and I'll call this file aplcsprod.dat. Click the Open button, and the export begins. We now end up with a DAT file. Let's go ahead and open it up to check that we have what we wanted. And as you can see, it's the same DAT file format that we initially had when we first built the database, except there are fewer records and fewer fields in this one. Just records and fields that we want the opposing side to have are listed here. And that's basically our production process. Taking a quick look at our C production folder, you can see we have the same file types that we started with, but in a much cleaner and smaller form. The TIFF files have been renamed with new base numbers. The image load file and DAT file contains only the relevant records. And the entire set can now be burned onto CD and sent off to the opposing side.